lot going on in the country today. I'll get to that. But I'm opening the show today with my friend Brett Baer because we got this brand new, wonderful book out, To Rescue the American Spirit, the Teddy Roosevelt and the Birth of a Superpower. Brett, welcome. Congratulations. I think Doug Burgum must be the happiest man in the world because you have really put TR back in the center of the conversation as we approach the opening of the TR Library in North Dakota next year.
Well, yeah, Secretary Burgum is very happy. He is a diehard TR fan and one who's really been fighting for the Presidential Library to come out there. And I interviewed him actually for the documentary that's part of this book by the same name, To Rescue the American Spirit on Fox Nation. It's just so rich, the anecdotes about Teddy Roosevelt. As you know, there's just stuff that jumps off the page about him, and I think it's important to look back to that time, to a president who was passionate and energetic, expanded the presidency on executive power in a number of different ways. And in this book, the focus being the forward-leaning push towards making America a global leader.
So I just had lunch with a couple of book guys, and I told them I was going to come and talk to you about your new TR book, To Rescue the American Spirit. And I said, most TR people are overwhelmed by the immensity of the character. Because there are three books here. There's Before the Presidency, and After the Presidency. And you managed to get your arms around it in a readable one-volume biography. And I know a lot of people have written books, a lot of books about TR. But were you at all intimidated by the immensity of the project, Brett?
I was, and we started down this research lane and, narrowing and focusing on what you want to do. But in each one of these books, and you've read them, it's a soda straw look at a moment that I think history overlooks. In Grant, in To Rescue the Republic, it was about the 1876 election and preventing the country from falling back into a second civil war. In Washington, To Rescue the Constitution was about the Constitutional Convention. But it's always this moment, soda straw moment, and then you bounce back and show how the leader gets to that point. With TR, there's so much good stuff that it is a little overwhelming, but my soda straw moment is really the forward looking global aspect of solving the Russian Japanese territorial dispute that's devolving into a war that ends up being a big diplomatic success in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and eventually gets him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, it was clearly a Roosevelt managed peace, page 262. You're quoting Eugene Trainey there, formerly the president of the Virginia Commonwealth University, but he wrote the definitive book on the Treaty of Portsmouth. But I didn't know any of that. And I've read a lot of TR. I did not know about how he held it together and the Russians were waiting on the Tsar and the Japanese made the big move and they got themselves a peace that lasted. Nor did I know that TR was very clear-eyed about how Japan would grow as a threat to America in the Pacific. It's a fabulous part. I'm going to jump around, Brett, just to give
Sure.
people some hooks to jump in. I want to
Yep.
jump over to when he's the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And what's the boss? Is it Lodge? Lodge is his
Yep.
friend. Long. Long leaves the office. And
Yeah.
basically, TR takes over and orders Dewey to the Philippines. I'd never heard that or read that before. I'd forgotten it. That's wild.
Yeah. I know, and he didn't leave the office again because he realized that TR was very active as far as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. It was a job that he loved. He wanted that job. He wanted to really dig in, but it's a job that he leaves as the Spanish-American War is ramping up and taking off. He leaves to form this regiment that becomes the Rough Riders, which is the compilation of the cowboys and ranchers and ne'er-do-wells that he meets out in North Dakota and the Wild Plains, and his buddies who are from Harvard. So it's kind of a Star Wars bar of regiment, and they come together to go over to Cuba. They commandeer a boat in Florida to all go together and get to Cuba together. They realize when they're on the dock that some reporters have not secured their passage. So TR, knowing the power of the press, gets them on their boat to travel with them for the entire trip. And that, in part, gives you all of the details that you see from the charge up San Juan Hill and everything else because they had reporters with them.
Up Kettle Hill, down Kettle Hill, up San Juan Hill. It's all in Brett's brand new book, as is the Maine. Brett, are you persuaded? You note that the controversy continues to this day about the Maine and whether or not it was an internal explosion or a mine. Did you come down on either side after reviewing all the records?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was an explosion with a mine. If you listen to all of the pro folks that way, it's pretty compelling, and obviously TR came down that way too.
Now, I've always asked when I've had the chance, people who want to be president, about the Navy. I like the fact that you explore it. TR is really a navalist, and Mahan got to him. And even before he became the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, when his sister got engaged to a lieutenant commander in the Navy over in London, he was thrilled. He'd always liked the Navy, but he never stopped pressing for a bigger Navy.
No, he didn't. And in fact, one of his big, bold things is the Great White Fleet, where he takes all the naval ships that are painted all gray, battleships, 16 of them, paints them gleaming white, and sends them out across the world, despite the fact that Congress hadn't really funded it. He said, we'll figure it out. And he sends them. And basically, it is a show of strength, in part because he's witnessed Japan's willingness to try to be a Pacific power, and that works. That white gleaming armada that sets out, starts out as a cloudy day, and then the skies open up, and the people there say this was a Roosevelt day, and it takes off and comes back 10 days before the end of his term, but it has the desired effect of showing that the U.S. is on the world stage and is a superpower.
Brett, it's an incredible odyssey. He gets up to Harvard after surviving childhood. Most people will know about the illnesses that accompanied him in childhood. They may not know about the passing of his dad when he's a freshman at Harvard. They may not know about the death of his first wife, but they will know that tragedy after tragedy after tragedy haunts this man's life, and he never ever gave up. Are you somewhat amazed at the resiliency of TR?
Yeah, I mean, from the sickly kid, his father bucks him up and says, "You've got to work out and you've got to get over this." And we in the special we had this shot of him looking down from their brownstone to the Abraham Lincoln um, funeral and going up Broadway. And he's one of two boys in a window looking down at that funeral. He saw his early life through a window because he couldn't get out of bed and he was homeschooled. Um, and in the hour special, we said the next time those two would meet would be on Mount Rushmore. Really amazing
Huh.
picture. But I think, from his resilience from a kid to buck up, he loved the outdoors. He does work out. He gets bulky. He's a boxer. But then he falls in love, and his wife's about to have a child, has the child, and she dies on the same day his mother dies, on Valentine's Day. He's devastated. And that's what brings him out west to North Dakota, where he bucks up again for 2 years, finding himself. And really, Hugh, it is interesting. He is resilient throughout his life, including the sickness that he experiences afterwards as he goes down the River of Doubt in South America. But it's the loss of his son Quentin as a fighter pilot in World War One that really kind of kills him in the end. And a
I
lot of
did
people
not
say,
know, or I had forgotten, Brett, until I read To Rescue the American Spirit, that Quentin was exhumed and placed next to his brother, General Teddy Roosevelt, who died a few days into the Normandy invasion of a massive heart attack. He'd gone ashore, I think at Utah Beach, you recount. But I
yep,
didn't know. And I've seen that grave. I've been to the Normandy Cemetery. I didn't notice Quentin's grave. Have you been there and seen it?
I have, and it's quite something. And his father would have been proud that they were together. It was Quentin's death, though, that took the wind out of his sails. And it's crazy that he becomes president at 42 and dies at 60. And at 60, he was positioned as the leading candidate for the next election in 20.
Because he
But
had done. We'll come back and tell you about that, America, in hour number 2. Brett will be back. There's a lot of Trump background in this book, by the way, that I got to talk to Brett about, and we will in part 2 of our conversation. In the meantime, during the break, go off in order to rescue the American spirit. Teddy Roosevelt and the Birth of a Superpower. Brett Baer is new. It's his 6th book about presidents. He's getting better at it every time. If you've been listening to the program for the last couple of years, you know I'm a hopelessly addicted fan of the Ruthless Variety program, which is a podcast available to anyone who enjoys fine podcasting. It's available Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, featuring the 4 fellas, one of whom, Josh Holmes, joins us now. Mr. Holmes, I'm not going to object to the officiating in London that allowed your Vikings to come back and beat my Browns. That would be ungentlemanly of me. I do want to know if the fellas' parlay has paid off yet this year.
One time. Week 1, all 4 teams hit. Of course, Joe Burrow was a part of the Cincinnati Bengals at that point, so we could rely on that. I'm sad to report my Vikings let the parlay down last week against the Eagles, but otherwise, this thing hits 2 or 3 times a year, and it's great odds. Great odds.
Well, you should not have won the first week because Mr. Schmidt, the Browns kicker, went wide right with no time remaining on the clock. Not that I'm keeping score. Josh Holmes, we got to cover a lot of business. I want to remind everyone, especially our new affiliates, that you are a professional. Before you got into the business of having fun for money, you actually advised the Senate leadership. You know the details of campaign. I want to know who's going to blink and when they're going to blink in this shutdown. And how do they know that they're gaining or losing ground? I thought their exit ramp was this week after the No Kings Walker rally, but now it's obviously not. When do they get off of this highway?
Yeah, well, I think, look, my co-host, I got to give credit to John Ashbrook, who sort of ferreted this out, but he looked at not only the No Kings situation, but as it coincided with Election Day in Virginia and New Jersey. And Democrats for a long time, going back to the beginning of my political career, have, when their chips are down, they look for any electoral victory to sort of suggest to a mainstream media that, of course, polls are wrong, all these things are wrong, the last election results are wrong, it's what's going forward, and there's a rejection in 2 blue states of what Republicans are trying to do, and so therefore you should cover things accordingly. And his hypothesis, which I think is a really, really good one, is that you have a huge concentration of federal workers in Northern Virginia. You have a Republican government, obviously, but not a lot of people do the math on the fact that you need 60 votes in the United States Senate and that like just a handful of Democrats can block all of government funding and shut the government down in and of themselves. And so they blame Republicans. And his thought is the No Kings rally was really about trying to get a whole bunch of people in to early vote, get registered and make sure that mail-in ballots are in and all those kind of things in Virginia and New Jersey, and then capitalize upon this angst that a whole bunch of people are not getting their paychecks in Virginia in particular, where things have slid sideways for the Democrats. And I think it's a pretty good theory, to be honest with you. It seems to be playing out at this point.
Now, that was from Ashbrook? That's a very Cincinnati theory. It's upside down. I think it's upside down because federal employees know that it takes 60 votes to open the government. I mean, federal employees are very clued in about how they get paid. I ran OPM.
They're also very democratic, Hugh. They're also very democratic. And I think that in this case in Northern Virginia, and you live there, you know, but there's an awful lot of people looking for a reason. And just the anxiety of not having a paycheck and somebody to blame, the proclivity is to blame Donald Trump and Republicans first. And that's the bet that Democrats are making. And if you look at some of the registration early vote numbers that came out of last week when they were holding the No Kings rally, it's pretty stark. It actually supersedes presidential level turnout in places like Fairfax County, Montgomery County. Yeah, they're places that Democrats need in order to overcome things like, I don't know, a candidate suggesting that he kill a political opponent's children. Right? I mean,
I love driving around Northern Virginia and seeing the Spanberger Jones signs. Those make me very happy that they can't take those down because they need him up with Spanberger and the guy who wants to be a murderer. That is, bad planning. Okay, what about New Jersey? There might be some feds up in Chitterelli land, but it seems to me that Chitterelli's got the mo there.
He does have the mo, and it's different than Virginia in that New Jersey has become more Republican acceptable in the era of Trump than a place like Virginia, which has gone sideways for Republicans. It's not been, other than the Youngkin win, an incredible win post COVID. Virginia has become more blue. New Jersey, although it's not come red by any stretch of the imagination, has become much more competitive than it was, much more inclined to support a President Trump and President Trump-like candidates. And I think that you're seeing that play out. Chitterelli clearly has momentum in that race. There's no question about that. Just look at what his opponent is having to say on a day-to-day basis, but clowning herself about trying to misconstrue his record. I guess the question is always goes back to, in the era of Trump, we have not done particularly well in the Republican Party when Donald J. Trump's name is not on that ballot. 2018, 2022, you look at all the special elections in between, and now maybe 2025 is the opportunity to change all of that. But that is where Republicans are running uphill here.
All right, very quick exit question, Josh Holmes. Up in Maine, which is my getaway state, Janet Mills, at 79, wants to be sworn into the Senate as a freshman. She wants to replace the most powerful senator in the Senate, not named Thune, Susan Collins, chairwoman of appropriation. What do you make of that, Ray? Democrats are so desperate to keep that nutter off the ballot that they're wheeling out the war horse. What do you think? Does that work?
They are. And, you can come at Susan Collins, but you better pack a lunch, because there is a long, long list of hopeful Democrats ranging from, 70-something, all the way. Last opponent, I think, was like 36, and everywhere in between, of people who thought that she was an easy out in the state of Maine, and she never has been in any form or fashion. Democrats are doing everything they can do to try to prevent some psychopath from entering into his primary dynamic that complicates their future. I don't think it matters at some point. I think Susan Collins is so strong in the state of Maine, and she's so independent and represents that constituency so well, that it kind of doesn't matter who you throw up against it. Whether or not the far left is energized or whether or not the moderate middle is energized, I think Maine has proven that somebody like Susan Collins is exactly the right representation for them over a long period of time, frankly.
I hope she comes and does it right along with the fellows, because she is a fabulous retail politician, and not many people know that. Josh Holmes, always good to see you. I hope your parlay works again, but the Vikings stole one in London, and I wanted you to hear that from my lips. Follow him on X at Holmes Josh, and the program is at the Ruthless Variety Program, wherever podcasts are available. Thank you, Josh. I want to tell you about conservatives for lower health care costs. Easy to remember, pharmawindfall.com. President Trump is standing up to big pharma in a way that no president ever had. They had their way with President Obama and Obamacare. And big pharma did just great in COVID. They did just great in COVID relief that we didn't need at the start of the Biden term. Downhill. Conservatives for lower healthcare costs, want them to prevent getting a third dip at the trough. And so they are teaming up behind President Trump's agenda for accountability and affordability. You can find out about that at pharmawindfall.com. That's pharmawindfall.com. Don't wait. Go to it during the break. pharmawindfall.com. Vice President Vance in Israel today gave a press conference. Let's start with cut number 4.
We have 59 countries that agreed to the deal. We have
no, cut number 4, the Vice President in Israel. Are we a little confused on our cut sheet there? Cut number 4, yeah. Our machine is, again, I'm blaming everything on Amazon blowing up the world yesterday, so I'll go and tell you about Americans for Free Markets while we figure it out. AmericansForFreeMarket.com, and it's forfreemarkets.com, F-O-R, freemarkets.com. You remember debanking? Do you remember how big banks decided that some customers were not good customers, and they began to debank them? And then President Trump, once he returned to the White House, began to speak up about that. Well, that's great, because he froze a lot of the heavy hand of the banking regulators in place and the big banks in place, and they stopped debanking conservatives. But that isn't in law. They're just afraid of Trump. How about putting that into law? Making sure that bank regulators assure that banks do not pick winners and losers based upon what the account holders represent. They ought to be neutral. It ought to be a free market. And that's why forfreemarkets.com exists, to make sure financial industry remains committed to financial freedom for every individual in America. That's forfreedom.com, F-O-R, freedom.com. Let me also take my relief factor while we're reloading the vice president again, because every day at this hour I take my relief factor. Great sponsor of the show. I'm in the relief factor studio. 4 pills every day. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you see it every day. And every day you hear it on the radio. A little bit of Trader Joe's water and they're down. Now I got to go late tonight. Got a couple of events downtown. Got to make those. So it was a long day in the morning. Began with the dentist at 8 o'clock. My great new dentist, who's 79 years old, took care of me. By 9 o'clock, I'm walking back home. And I was walking, and I felt great. And it's early. We went a long way. It's a tough way to get up there. But Relief Factor keeps you moving, gets rid of the minor aches and pains. The worst thing about Northern Virginia is the sidewalk situation. But with Relief Factor, it doesn't matter. We got Vance now. Let's go back to the Vice President, cut number 4.
Well, the incentives are that unless Hamas disarms in accordance with the agreement, very bad things are going to happen, right? And also the incentive is that if they disarm, there is a better future for everybody on the other side of it. But in terms of the international security force, Steve and Jared, Admiral Cooper, are working on that very issue right now. Remember, this peace deal was struck under the president's leadership literally a week ago. The hostages were returned, 6 days ago, 5 days ago? So we're in the phase now where we're actually starting to conceptualize what that international security force would look like. I think it's important for Americans to know a couple of things. Number one, there are not going to be American boots on the ground in Gaza. The President of the United States has made that very clear. All of our military leadership has made that very clear. What we can do is provide some useful coordination. How do you take, the Gulf Arab states, plus
And he also ripped the media, and I am glad he said this. Cut number 3.
Organization on one hand that murdered a lot of innocent people. You've got an Israeli army that was defending itself on the other, that has learned a lot over the past couple of years. And then, of course, you have an innocent civilian population in Gaza that's caught in the middle. But we're here at the Civilian Military Cooperation Center, which we are announcing the opening of. You have Israelis and Americans working hand in hand to try to begin the plan to rebuild Gaza, to implement a long-term peace, and to actually ensure that you have security forces on the ground in Gaza, not composed of Americans, who can keep the peace over the long term. So we've got a lot of work left to do. This is going to take a very, very long time, but I think Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Admiral Cooper behind me have done an incredible job. I want to say just a couple of quick things, and then I want to turn it over to Steve Witkoff. Number one, the Israeli government has been remarkably helpful in this. I want to thank them, thank our Israeli partners, and all the folks, particularly who are working hand in hand with their American friends here at the CMCC. And number two, I want to say that there is this weird attitude I've sensed in the American media and the Western media, where there's almost this desire to root for failure, that every time something bad happens, that every time that there's an act of violence, there's this inclination to say, oh, this is the end of the ceasefire, this is the end of the peace plan. It's not the end. It is, in fact, exactly how this is going to have to happen when you have people who hate each other, who have been fighting against each other for a very long time. We are doing very well. We are in a very good place. We're going to have to keep working on it, but I think we have the team to do exactly that. So with all thanks to our partners, both in Israel, but all across the Gulf Arab states, Indonesia, the Turks, we are doing an amazing thing here, and I'm particularly proud of the American troops working at the command center who are coordinating this effort and making it possible. So with that, I want to thank Ambassador Steve Witkoff.
I want to thank Vice President Vance for going to Israel and standing with our Israeli allies. Don't forget the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews asking for help for Israelis right now. Go over to HughHewitt.com. The banner is at the top. Every dollar is tax deductible, goes right to Israel to help those who've been hurt by the 2 years of war, and there are lots of them. HughHewitt.com, International Fellowship of Christians and Jews at the top. Over the years, you've heard a lot of states' attorneys general on this program, whether it was Josh Hawley or Eric Schmidt from Missouri, Dave Yost from Ohio, Ashley Moody, Pam Bondi, whatever it was, most recently Alan Wilson. But now I got a new one. Stephen Cox is the new Attorney General of Alaska, and I like to introduce the AGs to you because they are the first line of defense of federalism, none more so than Attorney General Cox. General Cox, welcome to the program. Good to see you. Tell people how you ended up doing this because you're a Texan. Now you're the AG of Alaska.
Well, thank you so much, Hugh, for having me on your show. This is my first podcast, and it's a pleasure to be with you. It's a huge privilege to be, here as Alaska's Attorney General. You're right. I originally from Texas. I was born in New Orleans, actually in Louisiana, and so I've lived in Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, Virginia, D.C. But we've made our home here in Alaska. It's a great state. It's the biggest state. It's a very unique state. It's unlike any other state, and the Attorney General office is unlike any other Attorney General office. So it was a privilege to have this opportunity to be appointed by Governor Mike Dunleavy and to serve the people of Alaska in this role.
Well, can you tell me how it's different from the other AGs? I have described them. I used to go to the Republican Attorney Generals Association conferences and would hear the panels and participate in the panels. Why is Alaska different? Always you're battling the federal government if you're on the side of truth, justice, and the Constitution. Always you're up against the overwhelming resources of the federal government. Why is Alaska different?
So there are a few reasons why Alaska is different. First of all, the Attorney General is appointed by the governor, so we don't run for office. We're part of the cabinet. And so in that regard, it's like the federal system. So the governor appoints me, and then I'm subject to confirmation by the House and the Senate. And I expect to be confirmed, hope to be confirmed next spring. And then unlike other states, the governor doesn't have his own general counsel. So I serve as the governor's general counsel as well. All of the executive branch agencies, they don't have their own lawyers. Their lawyers work for me in the law department. And then another reason it's different is we don't have elected district attorneys. We have a unified criminal justice system. So all of the district attorneys report up to me in the state of Alaska. And so those are just a few of the reasons why this job is like having 2 or 3 jobs.
And I want people to be assured he knows what he's doing when it comes to crimes. He's a former United States attorney, former senior member of the Department of Justice as well. He really knows the law. I'm curious, though, General Cox, there are a lot of tribes in Alaska. Do they have the same tribal rights that, say, the tribes of Oklahoma or the tribes of the far west have? Did they organize themselves sovereignly as did the earlier tribal negotiations?
Again, this is where Alaska is different and unique. Alaskans, the Alaskan natives got a different deal than the natives of the lower 48. And so in I think it was 1971, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, ANCSA, was passed by Congress. And instead of reservations and Indian land that you have in the lower 48, we actually have corporations, Alaska Native corporations. And so Congress divided up the state of Alaska into 12 regions and made the Alaskan Native residents of those regions shareholders of corporations. And so that's a very different kind of a deal. And so in my last job, I was the general counsel for an investment platform called Bristol Bay Industrial, and my parent company, our backer, was the Bristol Bay Native Corporation, and its shareholders predominantly were Alaskan Natives living and sustaining their traditional way of life in Bristol Bay, Alaska, which is Southwest Alaska, world famous for its salmon, probably feeds the world half of its salmon from those Bristol Bay rivers.
So the key question in this audience mind is, does the federal government bother Alaskans as much as it bothers the lower 48 attorneys general by constantly imposing their will on the way you'd rather do it?
Again, Alaska is unique in this regard. Right now, we have a great federal partner in the Trump administration. We're the only state to get its own executive order that President Trump signed on the first day of his office, and it's called Unleashing Alaska and Unleashing Alaska's Energy Potential. And the reason it was necessary is because the state had suffered 4 years of being subject to, I think it was something like 50 or 60 executive actions that targeted Alaska from the Biden administration. And Alaska really needed a reboot from the federal government. And we have a great partnership with President Trump, with all of his cabinet secretaries. They're all committed to really unleashing the potential that Alaska has with respect to energy and minerals and jobs and geopolitical security and all of those things.
All right, last question, Stephen Cox. What is the bar like in Alaska? The California bar defies description because it's so enormous. Different bar associations have different coloring. We got a minute. What's different about the Alaska bar?
It's a great question. First of all, I have been in Alaska practicing law for the last 4.5 years. As an in-house counsel, just like in any other state, I wasn't required to be a member of the Alaska bar, but I started an application to be admitted. So I was admitted earlier this year. And so I've met members of the bar. I've met past presidents of the bar. They're all fine lawyers and fine people. But I think what you probably find is that the Alaska bar is like many other state bars and the American Bar Association. They probably don't have the same kind of values and legal principles that you and I might. But we're lawyers. We're used to disagreeing in an agreeable way. And I look forward to working with the bar on a number of things.
I look forward to having you back. Attorney General Cox of Alaska, especially as any disputes develop with the Fed. Stephen Cox, thank you, friend. That makes sense. Give him what you owe on credit cards in your car and student loan debt. Maybe you ought to take the equity bump you got over the last 5 years, refinance your house at rates that are coming down. Do it with andrewandtodd.com. 888-888-1172. Whether you're a veteran and you don't want to put any money down, whether you're a first-time home buyer and you really have no clue how to go about this, or whether you're somewhere in between or even a senior looking for the reverse mortgage that allows you to take money out of your house, never make another mortgage payment, and put that money away, Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian will not only get it done for you, they'll give you the names of good financial advisors who will help keep your nest egg strong and safe, keep you with additional income coming from that which you got out of your house. Lots of ways to use your house as your first bank, and a lot of ways to move even in challenging times. They've kept going through the 4 long years of the Biden inflation. President Trump is bringing rates down. They will refi you as soon as it makes sense to refi you, but do not stay out of the housing market. It's finally become something of a buyer's market in some places around the country. Take advantage of that with andrewandtodd.com. 888-888-1172. They'll save you money, as will the friends at Consumer Cellular, my other great sponsor that every day is looking out for you. consumercellular.org/Hugh. consumercellular.org/Hugh. 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. I tell you about it every day because I know I got a lot of people who are 50 and older in my audience, and that's their target demo. And they know a lot of people who are 50 and older just want to make sure they know what their budget is. So they want unlimited data. They don't want to be surprised. They want to know that they've got the lowest, best deal available. I think that's with Consumer Cellular. You get 2 lines, 2 numbers, complete total data, unlimited data for $60 a month. Takes about 20 minutes to switch, no matter who your cell phone provider is. You keep your number, keep your phone, keep your digit, keeps all your information. Just save money, especially if you're 50 and older. And really, if you don't use a lot of data, you've got to call consumercellular.com/Hugh or call them at 800-411-4454. 4454. That's 1-800-411-4454. Use my code HUGH25. Saves you $5 off each of your first 5 monthly invoices, an extra $25 in your pocket. But you really save money when you switch to the data plan that matches your needs, especially if you're 50 and older. Consumercellular.org, consumercellular.com/Hugh, 1-800-411-4454. Last hour, I began a conversation with Bret Baier, host of Special Report, author of a number of books, but about his brand new bestseller, To Rescue the American Spirit, Teddy Roosevelt and the Birth of a Superpower. And it is the first actually one-volume history that I can recommend to people about TR, that they'll get the whole man, they'll understand him, and they'll understand his times as well. It's very hard to do. But Bret, throughout the book, I made little notes, like Henry Cabot Lodge's eulogy on page 351. After TR has died, he stands up in the Senate, and Lodge was his good friend for 40 years, 30 years. He never, by any chance, bored the American people. It was one of a long list of Trump-like comments I could make. Were you struck by that again and again?
I was. And, I write about it in the intro and the epilogue about the similarities. It's not exact, but there are some similarities. I mean, he was, a human cyclone, they called him, as far as the number of speeches and extemporaneous things, his ability to do a lot of things all at once. The fact that his administration, there were things that I describe it as like an iceberg that you focused on above water, and yet there was a lot happening beneath the water, another big iceberg. If you think about his executive actions and expanding the office of the president and what it would be in the long term, from the first president, George Washington, until the 25th, there were 1,200 executive orders signed. TR signed 1,300 executive orders. If you just think in perspective, President Trump in his first term signed 210. To this point in his second term has signed 220. Just to give a perspective of how many executive actions, executive orders Teddy Roosevelt was taking. A lot of those have to do with conservation and land that he preserves, obviously, to this day. But it also deals with establishing new agencies, the Forest Service. It deals with protecting laborers. He had 40 antitrust lawsuits filed as president. He was an enigma in some ways. Some ways you would think, I can think what Teddy Roosevelt's going to do. And in other ways, he didn't fit any mold.
No, wholly unpredictable. He has this great capacity for friendship with Lodge, Leonard Wood. You talk about all of them throughout the whole book, but he also had a capacity for converting enemies. Mark Hanna, and to a certain extent, Ohio drives TR's career because McKinley picks him up to be the Veep, and he becomes the Veep when McKinley is murdered in 1901. Mark Hanna did not want him to do anything, but he co-opted Hanna at one point. Then Hanna's getting ready to challenge him for the presidency, and he dies. But he would convert adversaries into friends and friends into adversaries. He is just a large person. I mean, he's a very difficult person to be friends with, I would imagine.
Yeah, larger than life. But he did have that ability to convince people to do things. Hanna, as McKinley's advisor, said, why are we putting this person one heartbeat away from the presidency?
Yeah.
All you have to do, William McKinley, is stay alive for 4 years. And in 6 months after he becomes vice president, obviously Teddy Roosevelt steps into that job after McKinley is assassinated in Buffalo at the exposition there.
But Hanna got the Panama Canal for TR. TR wanted the ditch. Yeah. And I love the description you have of him going down to the ditch when it's raining cats and dogs, and he just puts on his boots and goes up into the heavy machinery. And the journalists are there, and they love it as well. The energy of the man must have been extraordinary. And I do think that is also something that I think in terms of Trumpian energy, that I don't even think his worst enemies can deny him, is that the man's got energy that makes you marvel. It is very TR-like, though.
100%. I can tell you, I was on Air Force One going to Alaska for that summit with Putin, and coming back, at 2 a.m. after a long day, I was done. I was tapped. I had to go lay down President Trump was still going, and that's the kind of energy actually I got from all the stuff I read and all the research we did about Teddy Roosevelt. He had that kind of force of personality and force of nature.
Of course, Trump is already 19 years older than Teddy Roosevelt was when he died, and he is hale, robust, and moving at the speed of sound. I am not surprised after you describe The River of Doubt. There's a book, by the way, by that name, which I've never read because I could never figure out how anyone could make a book out of a voyage up a tributary of the Amazon that had never been explained. I thought you did a very succinct job of summarizing that, but you have to be nuts to take that trip, don't you?
You do, and he was an adventurer. He was a risk taker, and he started that and thought that this was going to be great to write about. He eventually did write about it, but it almost killed him. It really did. It almost killed him. The malaria. He gets injured in his leg. He tells his son, Kermit, just leave me. And obviously they never do. But getting out of there, he says he left a lot of his vitality in that jungle.
The other Trumpian analogy I'll note is that TR lost his brother to alcoholism as President Trump lost his older brother, I think Fred, to alcoholism, and then his son as well to alcoholism. You know, I really don't know how that impacts. Was TR a teetotaler? I can't remember that detail in the book.
No, but he wasn't a big drinker. I mean, it wasn't notable, but he never also says, I'm not drinking at all. But it's not notable in a lot of the research.
Most memorable anecdote in the book is the saloon out in the Badlands where the drunk approaches him with pistols drawn. You can tell the story. It's wild.
Well, he goes out there, and this is his early days in North Dakota and the Badlands, pre-North Dakota, and he's at a bar, and the guy comes up to him kind of inebriated. He's got two guns, and he says, hey, Four Eyes, because he's obviously making fun of his glasses, you're going to buy the next round. And Roosevelt stands up and laughs and says, sure. And then the guy comes back and says, no, you really will now. And he says, well, yeah, sure. And then he hauls off and clocks him, and then clocks him again. And the guy falls and hits his head on the side of the bar and is knocked out unconscious. The bar erupts because they think he was a real jerk. They take the guns away. They put him in the shed. And
they put him in the shed.
Yeah, the TR's early boxing days came to benefit him in the Badlands of North Dakota.
I can't even imagine parents indulging TR and his brother in the boxing matches that they held. It was wonderfully done. Another thing I want people to know about, TR understood the media. He went by Jacob Riss's office in the New York, is it the Herald or the Tribune, leaves him a note. I have read your book. I am here to help. And they haunt the tenements of the Lower East Side and Lower Manhattan as TR learns how the other half lives. Boy, I don't think I've ever read that anywhere else before, Brett.
Yeah, and he used the media really effectively, and in part so effectively that the establishment was scared of TR's reach with reporters. His time as police commissioner, he's upsetting the apple cart as far as the elitist kind of machine that's running New York City. As New York state legislator, he's stirring up the pot of Republican usual action by lawmakers. And then as governor of New York, he's doing the same. He's really upsetting the establishment. And in part, that's why the party says, let's make this guy, who's now come back as a hero from the Spanish-American War, let's make him vice president because we can put him in a box, and vice president doesn't really do anything.
That box did not hold. That box did not hold. I'm going to play all the rest of the Brett Baer interview on today's podcast, so head over to Highly Concentrated Hugh if you'd like to hear the rest of it. We'll put all of it in a standalone at YouTube as well. This is a fine book to rescue the American spirit. It is remarkable. The echoes of Trump or the echoes of TR in Trump or the foreshadowing of Trump. It's really remarkable that way. President Trump has spoken a lot in the last few days about his upcoming summit in South Korea. He's headed to the Korean Peninsula, hoping to meet with President Xi Jinping of China. I'm joined by Alex Gray, CEO of American Global Strategies, formerly Chief of Staff of the National Security Council in President Trump's first term. Alex, welcome back. What do you hold out as the objective of this summit with Xi Jinping, if it comes off at all?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Hugh. I think President Trump's always been clear-eyed about Xi Jinping. He knows exactly who he is. He knows exactly what the Chinese Communist Party is and stands for. And I think that hopefully the president will be able to get an equilibrium in the economic relationship to get our farmers some relief, get our soybeans out of this embargo that the Chinese have put on it. Hopefully he'll be able to get some sort of equilibrium related to rare earth export licenses that have been used by the Chinese as a sword of Damocles over us for the last several months. But the reality, Hugh, beyond getting that economic equilibrium, is that the Chinese Communist Party will never change its stripes. The president knows that. In fact, as you know well, President Trump was the first president to make clear in his national security strategy in 2017 that China is our paramount national security threat. Nothing has changed, and if anything, it's only gotten worse. So I have no reason to think President Trump's going to change how he approaches Xi Jinping.
Now, Alex, what do you think about the rare earth embargo on is that an attempt to get our best chips from whoever is making them at the time, whether it's NVIDIA or Intel or whomever? Is that an attempt to get a reciprocity on things that the Chi-Coms need?
I think that may be part of it. I also think that the Chinese understand that they have this weapon, and the Wall Street Journal did a great story that documented how the Chinese used dumping to put other rare earth companies, including American companies, out of business. As you know, Hugh, as a Californian, Mountain Pass Mine in California used to be the premier location for mining rare earths anywhere in the world. And the Chinese systematically went about, through economic warfare, putting other rare earth exporters out of business and claiming the market for themselves by undercutting prices. They're losing, because the world has caught on to what they're doing, they're going to lose that leverage. And so I think they're shooting their bullet here with the rare earths, because they know that in the next 10 years, the U.S. is going to become self-sufficient in mining with our partners and allies, and we're going to become self-sufficient in refining and in the processing, because we're onto them. And so I think they're shooting this bullet while they have it. And frankly, it's a tactical and it's a strategic mistake.
I know that there are great deposits of rare earths in Minnesota, and Team Biden, of course, extended the national monument to encompass one of the great mining areas in America. Anything that Team Trump has done to roll back that bit of idiocy?
I don't know specifically on Minnesota, but I know that the president has had a whole of government and expansive approach to rare earths, whether they're in Montana, Wyoming. He's supporting refining efforts. And as you know, Hugh, the mining is just one piece of it. A place where we've always been strong. It's the refining and the processing that really is critical. And that's what we need to build up here. In my state of Oklahoma, that's where we're having a big effort to put up a processing facility for some critical minerals and rare earths. We're working on deals with Congo and with countries all over the world, Australia, to try and get that key strategic source of supply. I think the president's doing across all levers of government. He's doing what he needs to do to make sure that we have access and the capacity to turn those rare earths into usable commodities that can power our economy and get away from the Chinese vice grip.
All right, now I want to turn my attention over to Russia and Ukraine. You just followed, I was talking to Brett Baer about this brand new book on Teddy Roosevelt, and a full chapter of it is devoted to TR convening the Portsmouth peace conference between the Russians and the Japanese at the turn of the last century. TR managed to keep everyone at the table long enough to get the Russo-Japanese war settled. He got the Nobel Peace Prize for that. And it was as though TR was drawn like a moth to light to conflict. Do you see President Trump in the same role with Russia and Ukraine successfully?
Well, I've always said, Hugh, going back to when I first went to work for him in July 2016, that President Trump is Theodore Roosevelt in so many ways, domestically and internationally, and in terms of his personality. But I think absolutely the president can play that Teddy Roosevelt peacemaker role, and he's starting to put together the pieces to do it. And one of those key pieces is going to be putting sufficient pressure on Vladimir Putin. He's already put pressure on Zelensky to modify his goals and to be more, I think, open to what the ultimate contours of a realistic peace deal look like. The president's going to, I think, eventually put the type of pressure on Vladimir Putin. He's already done some. There's more to do. And I think he's going to get Vladimir Putin into a point where he sees that there is no tactical battlefield victory here, and he has the best chance of getting out of this mess at the negotiating table than he does continuing to send Russian young men into their slaughter. So I think just like Teddy Roosevelt understood the dynamics of the imperial Russian regime and the Japanese regime, and he understood how to take advantage of their internal problems to get to a peace deal. I think President Trump's working his way toward that with the Ukraine-Russia situation.
Okay, Alex, last question. It is said that rallies on Wall Street climb walls of worry. And the wall of worry around AI is quite large and growing every day. We had David Bahnsen on yesterday talking about how AI is sucking in all this CapEx. How are they ever going to make revenue? You represent a lot of people in the AI industry. Are they worried about that, or do they believe the productivity will inevitably follow the adoption of their platforms?
Most of the companies we work with are definitely in the AI optimist camp, and I know I am personally. I think that AI has the potential, whether it's in the domains of warfare, economic productivity, just how we do our daily lives, to transform it like nothing has since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Obviously, we have to be smart about it. We have to put in place smart protocols. But the one thing, Hugh, that I think we've learned from other industries and watching how Washington harms infant industries is over-regulating or letting the states regulate piecemeal, not taking a strategic approach that's informed by a long-term vision for the U.S. economy. That is the best way to kill the baby in the crib and to take away this huge opportunity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I hope we reject the EU model. Alex Gray, always good to catch up with you from American Global Strategies. I always love the perspective of someone who's been there and done that. Thank you, Alex. I want to remind everyone we have a great sponsor in the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Yael Eckstein is the president of it. You've heard her on this program a lot. As Vice President Vance and Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner are all in Israel at this moment, working on steps 3 through 20 of the Trump 20-point peace plan. Keep in mind that Israel's been at war for 2 years. They are weary. They are by no means backing up. They are no means less resolved. But they could use our help, and a lot of Americans with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews are stepping up to help out. There is a banner for the IFCJ at the top of HughHewitt.com. Every contribution helps with the soup kitchens, with feeding the homeless, with helping hostage families recover, with the resilience centers set up across Israel by the IFCJ. I thank you in advance for your support of IFCJ. All tax deductible. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Jonathan Williams is president and chief economist at our friends at the American Legislative Exchange Council. And Jonathan, I am curious. I have not been to Jackson, Mississippi in 39 years. You were there last week. What did you find that had changed, and had anything about school choice changed, to be specific?
Well, hey Hugh, it was a good day on the ground in Jackson. I was with our ALEC National Chair, who's been on your show before, Senator Patricia Rucker from West Virginia, a real hero nationally for the school choice movement. And we were talking about some of our top tier ALEC priority issues with the delegation of Mississippi lawmakers. And I think the one thing that has changed in this upcoming legislative session is the Speaker of the House, Jason White. Number one legislative priority is to pass universal education choice for Mississippi. And Hugh, you and I have talked about this a ton. I mean, the Southeast, awfully competitive reason for lots of things, such as not just football, but we have tax cuts. We've all kinds of good ALEC policies that we've been getting some major wins. And Mississippi is now finding themselves as an island surrounded by school choice education freedom states, most recently in Louisiana with Governor Jeff Landry. But you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you have Governor Bill Lee, you have in Alabama, you have in Florida, obviously leading the way. And so nearly the entire Southeast now is a education freedom zone where the dollars follow the parents, except for Mississippi. And I know Governor Tate Reeves, this is a big priority of his, Speaker White. And it was a great conversation with one of the heroes of the school choice movement. So I was just glad to play a small part of it on Friday.
I do love West Virginia Senator Patricia Rucker because she was one of the absolute trailblazers in this. Now, there are a lot of different models of school choice. She invented the Hope Scholarship for West Virginia. Which model is most likely to succeed in Mississippi, Jonathan Williams?
Well, there's not a bill yet. So I think, it's all the above approach, just like we talk about in lots of different government reform areas. I think whatever gets across the finish line is probably going to be the right idea to pursue, whether that's a education tax credit scholarship like we saw Oklahoma or other states pursue under Governor Stitt, or it's a ESA plan where they have the savings account. Lots of different ways to get there. I think the most important is you've got a lot of failing school districts in Mississippi where their kids don't have the upward mobility right now. And you look at those NAEP scores in Mississippi and, of course, nationally, they're horrific. That I caught President Trump's attention when I was with him in January there at the White House with the governors. And that's got to stop. I mean, Mississippi's making some good progress because of some of their school reforms that they've made, but there's so much more to be done, and especially when all of the neighboring states have already gotten there when it comes to the dollars following the children to the schools of their choice.
Yeah, if President Trump gets involved with this, it'll help the Republicans in the 2026 midterms because this is the no-brainer issue of American domestic policy, freedom of choice when it comes to school. But of course, he's bound up right now, and I'm leading off next hour with Leader Thune talking about the shutdown. Let's turn to the bad news. It's terrible for the government. It's terrible for the economy. It is very hard on federal workers who've missed one paycheck. They're going to miss a second next week. Not the military, I hope. What do you hear, Jonathan?
Well, I came just from the White House before coming on air here with you. And obviously they're fighting right now to reopen the government to get this done from a clean CR perspective. And I think the president had the members of the U.S. Senate there this afternoon for lunch. And so there'll be a lot I know, hear from Senator Thune. I look forward to listening to that. But I think what the important thing is right now we still have the far left holding this hostage over $1.5 trillion of new bloated spending that they would like to see. This is what this is all about. And my good friend Lisa McClain, head of the Republican conference in the House, talked about $200 billion of that, Hugh, is for health care for illegal aliens or for other non-citizens in terms of U.S. taxpayer-financed Medicaid, the California loophole that's been talked about so much and exposed by people like Ron Johnson, and other things in terms of Obamacare subsidies. Now, when people are struggling to make ends meet in so many ways across the country, seeing these hard-earned tax dollars go towards those kind of spendings, and that being the thing that is shutting down the government now for 21 days, where Chuck Schumer is using that as the cudgel that he thinks he's winning on this. I don't think he's right. I think when I talk to people and ALEC members across the country, they see right through it and they say, we passed the clean spending bill so many times, we need to look at that once again.
Yeah, Jonathan, Josh Holmes from Ruthless Podcast was on earlier. He now understands this is a giant get out the vote effort by Democrats to mobilize their base. That's the only thing that makes sense of this. Do you agree? That might be what the real deal is?
I think there's some truth to that argument. The other thing is, this is a play from people like Leader Schumer to worry about his left flank in a primary in the future. I think the real debate that needs to be happening in the public is a debate between AOC and Chuck Schumer for the future of where the Democrat Party would like to go. There's lots of cool heads like Mr. Fetterman that would like to see the government reopen again on the Democrat side.
May they gain in numbers soon. Jonathan Williams from ALEC.org. Always a pleasure to talk with you. ALEC is our great sponsor. Visit them at alec.org/Hugh and get your State of the State newsletters. We'll talk to Jonathan Williams again soon. Follow him at Tax Economist on X. Byron York is the chief Washington correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor extraordinaire, and we are always lucky when he's here. Follow him on X at Byron York. Byron, does the Schumer shutdown make any political sense in your book?
Not that I can tell. I mean, obviously, we're seeing none of this is hurting the president's popularity rate. It's his for years it's bounced around in a fairly narrow range, and nothing really hurts it, and this hasn't. So that's not a good thing. And they're not making the Democrats are not making any progress on the Obamacare subsidies thing. And incidentally, in the past, Democrats taught Republicans how to handle this, which is look at the party that is attaching conditions to reopening the government, that's the Democrats this time, and say, no, first open the government, and then we'll talk about your issue. And that's where we are right now, and Democrats seem to be just treading water at the moment.
Now, Josh Holmes was on with me a little bit earlier, and he used to live up on the Hill on the Senate side and has been through a number of these things. The only thing he can come up with is Democrats, for some reason, think this is a giant get-out-the-vote effort in Northern Virginia because so many federal employees have missed paychecks. But, federal employees are pretty smart about this. They know it's 60 votes. They know it's the Democrats who are stopping them from making their car payments. Do you think it really is a GOTV play by a inept and confused Democratic Party?
Well, I'm not going to question Josh's judgment on this, but it seems kind of like a weird decision. It just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, there's all the speculation about Chuck Schumer and his being afraid of a primary challenge from the left, which probably will happen.
Yeah.
There kind of was hell to pay for him in the Democratic Party for being seen as capitulating to Trump. What was it, back in March with an earlier spending bill? So the interesting thing about this is the real policy issue about this is really is about the growth and the permanent growth of government and how emergency spending turns into new baseline spending, and it goes out of control because clearly way back in 2010 when Obamacare was passed, Democrats knew it wasn't what they wanted. They wanted something much bigger, but they couldn't get it politically. So what they did was they put something in place and said, we're going to build on this as years go by. Well, they didn't get another opportunity to have the White House, the House, and the Senate until 2021, first year of Joe Biden. They immediately used the COVID pandemic as the rationale to increase premium subsidies, in other words, taxpayer-paid payments for Obamacare premiums. They only do it for a year to 2022. And then they say, okay, we're going to do it until December 31st, 2025, which is coming up now. And what we're seeing is this belief in the Democrats that once you start spending and send the money out, you can't stop. You can never stop it. And Republicans are saying, look, these were emergency, pandemic-related spending, so it's time to cut them off.
Obamacare is such a mess, Byron. I don't know that Democrats really want to draw attention to what a mess it is. I don't know anybody who likes the way health care has gone since Obamacare passed. The JCPOA and Obamacare together may be the worst two-term set of accomplishments for any presidency in modern time. Anything come close to that pair of failures?
No. I mean, in terms of policy failures, obviously there have been failures of judgment, the Iraq War.
Sure.
But in terms of actual policy, doing what they intended to do, no, I don't think I can remember such.
Now, Byron, I want to turn to New York City. Wrote a column for Fox News. I endorsed Andrew Cuomo. Can't believe I did it. I just don't want to have an anti-Semitic communist, in my opinion, running the world's greatest city. Do you think it's possible that Cuomo can pull this off with enough Sliwa votes?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I was thinking today, well, what if Sliwa did just change his mind and say, look, I didn't really mean it. I will get out. Would enough Sliwa votes, even when Sliwa was not in the race, would enough of them go to Cuomo to stop? And, Cuomo's such terribly damaged goods. I mean, it's I mean, it's horrendous. I feel bad about you endorsing Cuomo, as a matter of fact. Just such a terrible, terrible candidate. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, all I can point to is that the city of New York employs 300,000 people, and Comrade Mamdani has run a state legislative office with between 8 and 12 people. That's it. That's his resume in a campaign, which is other people's money and volunteers. It's not the same thing. I really wonder, don't you think he'll be overwhelmed?
You know, I think well, yeah. I mean, he hasn't run anything. You're absolutely right. He will be overwhelmed. He has all of these ideas, about free buses and rent control and all sorts of stuff, and he has no idea how to pay for them because there is no way to pay for them without huge tax increases. So, yeah, he will be. But, the interesting thing about Mamdani is that what I was writing this week about his visit with Imam Wahaj and the mosque in Bed-Stuy, where the imam who testified in support.
Character witness for the blind sheikh. Not a co-conspirator. I like to point that out. Not a co-conspirator, just a character witness.
But listen, yeah, right. But also, he was asked in the same testimony in which he attested to the character of the blind sheikh. He also attested to the good character of two other defendants in the trial, all three of whom with the blind sheikh, were found guilty. And plus, the cherry on top, if you wanted, he in interviews, he specifically, after September 11th, he specifically declined to speak ill of Osama bin Laden.
Now, maybe he's deputy mayor material. I don't know. Mr. Mamdani is going to run the most interesting administration in New York City history, but I'm still hoping. I know he's damaged goods, but Andrew Cuomo at least knows how to run a railroad occasionally. Mr. Mamdani's 10 staff or office is not the same thing. Byron York, thank you. Follow him on X at Byron York. I worked very hard on my cut sheet today, so I want to share some of it. Here's Dana Perino on Fox News with the news about deportations, cut number 14.
Deportation numbers hitting record highs since President Trump's return to office. His administration booting more than 515,000 illegal migrants so far. 1.6 million illegals have left the country on their own, with immigration agents arresting 485,000. DHS saying that Trump is set to shatter the U.S. deportation record by the end of 2025.
Meanwhile, that's pretty remarkable. Let's go another remarkable bit of analysis from Mary Catherine Ham on with Lawrence on Fox and Friends this morning or yesterday, cut number 13.
Here's the thing Democrats did that really helped Republicans is they spent 20 years calling men toxic. And that's what men heard. And then young men in particular had every milestone taken from them during the COVID era. And then they were told by Democrats that they were toxic for having any complaints about it. And those guys were like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like you guys like us. And so they went the other direction. Now, there are pockets of the internet, of course, that do turn into very toxic masculinity. That can be a real thing. But the fact that the Democrats failed with this demographic by telling them they don't like them is not actually Republicans' fault. They just ended up benefiting from it by saying, hey, you know what we like? The UFC and dudes.
And it worked. Let's go now to Jared Kushner at the press conference in Israel with the vice president earlier today, cut number 12.
Yeah, Jared, you want to say a few words about that? Okay.
So, first of all, no reconstruction aid, no reconstruction funds will be going into areas that Hamas still controls. And as far as the demilitarization goes, once the ISF is up, there needs to be a security force that they can feel safe from, that in order for it to be the transition to be complete. So that needs to happen. There are considerations happening now in the area that the IDF controls, as long as that can be secured to start the construction as a new Gaza, in order to give the Palestinians living in Gaza a place to go, a place to get jobs, a place to live.
I'm so happy to hear no reconstruction aid to control areas of Hamas. That as another incentive for the people to rise up against them. Finally, President Trump at the White House today talking about the new construction of the ballroom, cut number 20.
Listen here. And most excitingly, on the other side, you see the fence. And the wall, we're building a world-class ballroom. You know, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom here. We don't have a ballroom. We have a little cocktail area, but we don't have a ballroom. The East Room, it's called, is a very small cocktail area. It holds about 88 people if it's tight. And I said, if I do this again, I'm going to get a ballroom built, and we're putting up our own money. With the government is paying for nothing. You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound? Oh, that's music to my ears. I love that sound. Other people don't like it. I love it, Josh. I think when I hear that sound, it reminds me of money. In this case, it reminds me of lack of money because I'm paying for it, so it's the opposite. But it's going to be.
There is a reason that his numbers are so very good compared to his first term. He's comfortable in the job. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway, where it's rush hour. Lots of federal employees are heading back over the bridges or back to Maryland, and they haven't been paid again. I'm joined by the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Senator John Thune of South Dakota, to get the latest on when we're going to get these people paid. I know, Senator Thune, you were at the White House today. Why don't you recap for the audience the intransigence of Chuck Schumer?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, Hugh, as you know, I've been very clear. I've been willing to sit down with Democrats. They want to discuss the growing unaffordability and unsustainability of Obamacare. And I've said I'm willing to give them a vote, but it's under one condition. They've got to end the Schumer shutdown, open up the government. I mean, we can't negotiate under hostage conditions, and that's where we are right now. As you know, we have a bill to fund the government, passed the House, sitting on the desk at the Senate. The president's ready to sign it. The government could open up today. We just need a handful of Democrats to join us because, as you know, it takes a supermajority, 60 votes in the Senate, to pass anything consequential. And Democrats continue to resist. They just voted for the 11th time to keep the government shut down. So that's where we are, but you're right. It has a lot of impacts on a lot of people, including federal employees who aren't getting paid.
Now, Leader Thune, I remain amazed at just the inability of Senator Schumer to articulate a reason for this. But Josh Holmes, one of the fellows, and you've done ride-alongs with Ruthless Program before, offered today that this might be a giant GOTV, that they're trying to get out the vote in Northern Virginia. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me because federal workers are pretty smart about who's keeping the government shut. It's the Democrat. What do you make of Josh's theory?
I think there's always a political. You know, Chuck Schumer doesn't do anything that doesn't have a political component to it. And honestly, I think that's what's driving this, Hugh. If you think about it, there really isn't any other explanation. I think they're so scared of their hardcore base. But to your point, if you're trying to win races in places like Virginia or Maryland, you got an awful lot of people who, they pay attention to what's going on, as you pointed out, and they've got to know. They've got to know that we've been trying now for weeks to open up the government. We've got a clean funding resolution sitting at the desk in the Senate. All we have to do is get a handful of Democrats to vote for it. So if I'm a Virginia federal employee or Virginia voter for that matter, I think I would be calling my senators from Virginia and saying, what are you guys doing and when are you going to vote to open up the government?
I certainly wouldn't be voting for Spanberger as a way of rewarding Democrats for making me miss paychecks. Leader Thune, when you had a chance to talk to the president, is there enough money to be found in the Pentagon to pay the troops another check? They scraped it together last go around. That's the one, I don't like anyone not getting paid when they're working, but I especially don't like people who can't quit.
Right. And we want, Republicans want our troops to get paid. We want the men and women of the Border Patrol to get paid. We want TSA agents, ATC, air traffic control, every federal employee to get their paychecks. And that's what voting on the clean CR represents. They want, the Democrats that is, far left progressive activists be less mad at them. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So I just think in the end, Hugh, that it's a simple choice for them, and they can get the government back open or they can choose to keep letting the far left call the shots. I think the majority of the country is starting to see through this and is going to continue to move against them. But it doesn't seem like they care. I think they are so fearful, so afraid, so running scared from that far left base, which is where, the money in Democrat politics is, the small donor stuff. It's where the activists, it's where the the energy is, and frankly, that's where a lot of people end up getting primaried. And I think these Democrats here in the Senate are afraid of that.
Now, Leader, do you think they want Russ Vought to come out of OMB with the axe? President Trump called him our Darth Vader. He hadn't done anything very radical thus far, but do you think the Democrats want him to do that?
It's almost in a way, I don't know if they think that makes them look like martyrs or create this cult of victimology for their cause, because it's not going to work. I mean, what they're doing is they're costing themselves and their states. I mean, obviously, any president, if forced with the decisions that President Trump and Russ Vought and others on his team are going to have to make, are going to make decisions about where to put money, where to allocate resources based on their priorities. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that's going to mean that a lot of these states like New York are probably going to get, ones that get hurt by that, because they're going to be thinking about where do we put how do we decide which departments, which agencies, which federal employees are, essential, which aren't, which ones get paid, which don't. Those are all decisions that in a shutdown the administration has to make, and they're clearly going to make them based on their own priorities, and those are not going to be the priorities the Democrats want.
Can we also talk about regular order for appropriations? Senator Collins is chair of the Appropriations Committee. I want to talk to you about Janet Mills wanting to be a freshman senator at the age of 79 in just a moment. But are you ready to proceed with regular order if they reopen the government?
Absolutely, and we've told them that repeatedly, and as recently as Thursday last week, we gave them a chance to vote on the defense appropriations bill. That was simply to get on the bill. I mean, it's a cloture on the motion to proceed to the bill. They have two other times where they'll have the backstop of a 60-vote threshold where they could block or stop that bill if they wanted to. They wouldn't even let us get on the appropriations bill that pays the troops. These people are not acting in a rational manner. And they seem to be flailing about. I can't figure it out, what it is exactly that they want. I mean, they want to have a conversation about Obamacare, fine, open up the government, and we'll do that. And that's kind of been the message we've been consistently delivering to them. And then we've even offered up a vote. We'll give you a vote on your proposal. But we want to get the appropriations process going, which is something Democrats have said in the past they want to do as well. And yet we tried to get a bill up on the floor last week, the defense appropriations bill, and they blocked it. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Again, the other political thing I don't understand, they're wheeling out Janet Mills, who's the governor of Maine. I spent a lot of time in Maine. She's far left. She got in an argument with President Trump in the White House about letting boys play in girls' sports. And she's up against Susan Collins, and she's the Democrats are underscoring the importance of Chairwoman Collins' position for Maine. It just seems like first-grade politics. It's so dumb.
Right. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I thought maybe when they got their big protests out of the way this weekend, there'd be a few of them with the courage to come around and do the right thing. But, yeah, they are exactly highlighting Susan Collins' effectiveness and her role in the appropriations process. So, I think that it's going to take five more Democrats to come to their senses and open up the government. But, you're just going to start seeing it, Hugh. You're already seeing it. Travel delays, benefit delays, impacts to farmers, millions of people missing paychecks, all because Democrats are appeasing their far-left base. And that far-left base seems to be demanding that people like Janet Mills run. And I don't know why somebody in her season of life would want to get in the middle of a race like this, especially against somebody as capable and talented as a campaigner as Susan Collins. And so
to be a freshman senator at 79 is one of the more ridiculous propositions I've ever given, that everything in your body operates on seniority, like literally everything. I just don't understand. Last question. How many times do you expect to offer Democrats the opportunity to reopen the government this week, Leader Thune?
Well, we'll give them another one tomorrow, and then we move in on Thursday. Ron Johnson has a proposal. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's kind of the equivalent of an automatic CR, but it pays everybody who is, quote, accepted. In other words, everybody who is an essential employee that's still working. So if you're working, it doesn't cover furloughed employees. They'll get back pay, but if you're working, you should get paid. So it's a different way of sort of getting a vote on this, and but it would require anybody who's working in the federal government to get paid. We're going to see what the Democrats do with that one.
Well, that's going to strip the camouflage off of the Northern Virginia get out the vote effort. Leader Thune, thank you as always for joining me. Hang tough. You have been communicating well and effortlessly the same message, which is we do not negotiate when we're being held hostage, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Leader Thune.
Thank
The president today held a presser, and he trolled just about everybody. But what I liked is he trolled Mamdani as well. Cut number 18.
But he's going to explain there might be some dark, deep psychological reason where they want to vote the opposite way. I don't know what it is, but we have to win the midterms. Otherwise, all of the things that we've done, so many of them are going to be taken away by the radical left lunatics. I mean, we're going to end up with a communist mayor in New York. Can you believe it? A communist. Remember, I would always say, we will not have a socialist elected in our country. Remember, I'd say that all the time. And I was right. We skipped socialists. We got a communist elected. So I didn't tell a lie. I didn't tell a lie. I was right. We'll have a communist, not a socialist.
I agree with him. He's an anti-Semitic communist. And New York, your fate is in your hands. Vote for Andrew Cuomo. I know he's damaged goods, but he does know how to run a larger organization than a state assemblyman who's got a staff of 10 to 12 people. Truly one of the most suicidal votes that anyone can ever take. It doesn't work. It's never worked. Take a trip to Cuba. Go visit North Korea. Go look at the security state in China. It only works for totalitarians and communists when they destroy everything around them except the party. Comrade Mamdani, bad news, vote for Cuomo. Mary Margaret Olahan is one of the rising stars of the Beltway journalism cadre. She's shooting up in everyone's esteem, and she's everywhere, and she's working harder than anyone her age should be working. Mary Margaret, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's great to have you on. I want to begin by asking you the first two questions I ask every first-time guest. I hope you're back often. The very first question is, was Alger Hiss a communist spy?
Hugh, it's so great to be here. I'm a fan. I'm honored to be on this show, and it's an exciting time to be in politics. I mean, look at what's going on around us, and I think maybe possibly the best time in my lifetime to be a journalist. We have all kinds of things going on domestically, but also internationally. And as a White House journalist, there's just so much freedom of press. We can roam around the White House. We can roam around all these events, question the president when we can, question Caroline Leavitt. I have access to all these administration officials. So I'm having fun. It's kind of like a big political playground.
President Trump clearly likes you. That's a good part of being a White House reporter is when he calls on you. But I noticed you didn't answer the his question. Are you going to take a pass on that one?
I'm going to take a pass on that one for now.
Okay, you've got to go look that up. Good young reporters need to know he was indeed a communist spy. Second question, have you ever had the chance to read The Looming Tower? It might be older than you are, but it's the most important book on the Wahhabist Islamist movement in the world. Any chance you've read that yet?
I haven't. I'm going to have to check that out.
No, you will love The Looming Tower. Now, Mary Margaret, tell me what your day is. First of all, are you a Northern Virginia Catholic, a Beltway, a D.C. Catholic, or a Maryland Catholic?
Oh, I am a deeper Virginia Catholic. You know, I I live in the Virginia area, but I grew up out near the Shenandoah Mountains with some great salt to the earth Catholic homeschoolers, so I know the area very well. And I love DC, but during COVID I decided I didn't want to live in DC anymore, so I decided to retreat to the outskirts to Yunkin country, and I've been pretty happy there.
Do you make the commute? Do you make that commute every day? Oh my goodness, that is dedication. That's dedication.
It takes me about 25 minutes.
Well, that isn't bad. I was hoping to run into you at early morning mass. I'm a 7 a.m. mass guy, but you will not be at my parish if you're that far outside of the Beltway. Let me ask you this. What do you think of Pope Leo thus far?
I'm hoping to see more that can give me a more solid opinion of him. I was very excited about him at first, and some of the recent comments that we've been hearing from him, I'm a little perplexed by. We have a long history of popes commenting on American politics, and especially with Pope Francis, I think he jumped in at inopportune moments, I would say, and didn't really weigh in on a lot of the issues that many of us, and I'm sure you, Hugh, had with former President Joe Biden and his affinity for abortion and different issues that very much contradicted Catholic teaching. So Pope Leo, I know he's kind of waded in a little bit, and I think his recent comments showed that he realized maybe he shouldn't be, and he said he's not going to weigh in on American politics as much. So I'm hoping to see more from him. I'm a little disappointed so far, but hoping to see more that we can appreciate.
In my balancing, there's more good than bad, but I'm waiting for the first consistory because a couple of American bishops are owed red hats, and we're going to see whether or not Pope Leo comes through with that, and we'll keep our eye on that. Now, tell me about when you're younger at the White House press corps. Do you get elbows in the ribs, or are they willing to give you your shot? Because as people get older, they hate to see that they're getting pushed aside by the bright young people.
Well, I will say I do get elbows in the ribs, and I was not expecting that. And I mean literally elbows in the ribs. You can get pushed around in there. For example, there was recently an event where I was in the press pool, which means I was able to, go into the Oval Office that day, and we're supposed to have better seating and standing access to the events. And so, it's time to go up the stairs into the White House for this event, and I had to literally push my way through the crowd because no one would let me go. That's how feverish the press interest is in these events lately. And I will say that was the day that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was at the White House, and so there was a lot of foreign press as well. But it is chaotic over there these days, and I think that the press that I have met, that there are the typical White House press corps, they've been fairly kind to me. There's one or two that have been rude, and at the beginning I think there was an apprehensive attitude towards newer media like the Daily Wire, like myself, but my goal in there is to work hard to show people that we care about the truth, that we have just as much a right to be there as they do. And I'm happy to say that I've been treated pretty well, and I think we're doing a good job, and I hope we can continue to do so.
The Daily Wire is actually beating the heck out of the legacy outlets, and you're part of the reason for that. Would you take me back to Catholic University? I know you went your undergraduate there. I think President Garvey was your president when you were there. Yes. What did you study? Because you've absolutely, shot up the journalism ladder. What did you get ready with?
Well, I come from a long line of English majors. My grandmother was one. My father was one. I am one as well. And I read a lot of English literature in college. I read a lot of English literature in middle school and high school. And I didn't totally know what to do with myself because I knew I loved writing, and my family has lots of writers in it. But when it came time to decide what to do professionally, I worked at Regnery Publishing for a little bit, which I love. Tom Spence is one of my heroes, the former publisher of Regnery. And while I was there, the Kavanaugh hearings happened, and I was completely radicalized by the way that the media handled all of this. And I decided I would far rather be an active part of the news and writing news than just reacting to it and seeing how things go and having to, quote these biased or left-leaning or just straight-up false pieces of news that I was seeing go by. And so I took a little leap of faith, and I applied to the Daily Caller News Foundation, and by an act of God, they accepted me and taught me how to be a reporter, and here we are today.
Just be careful of that Cher character down in Tennessee. I know him pretty well, and I just be very careful of him. I wanted to say,
He's a big fan of yours.
Well, he's a good guy. We really like Brett. I wanted to say one thing. I'm so happy that there are young Orthodox Catholics in the business, because it's not really, you're not going to run into many of yourself, are you? There just aren't a lot of us in the business.
Yeah, I think it's rarer and rarer these days to find people who are very serious about their faith, but I would argue, especially Catholics, it's hard to find people who are really serious about their faith. But I will say, in D.C., I think we're blessed that there are some notable figures that have really lived lives that are very virtuous, and they've strove for excellence, and I find them very impressive. And it's nice to stumble on them once in a while and to kind of realize, one of us, they're out there and they're here. And I have some
I used to think Ryan Anderson was the kid. I used to think Ryan was the kid. Now you're the young person. So Ryan is graduated to middle age. Mary Margaret Olohan, I hope you keep coming back. Continued good success in the White House as you get to interview everyone. I hope you're on Air Force One to Korea if that's in the cards and Brent lets you go. Thank you, Mary Margaret. Follow her over on X at Mary Marg Olohan, and it's spelled Mary Marg, M-A-R-G, O-L-O-H-A-N. Give her a follow. Follow her work. She works at the Daily Signal. She knows what she is, Daily Wire. She knows what she is doing, and boy, she is doing it well. But as I said, President Trump gave a press conference today with the Senate GOP. I like this cut the best, cut number 8.
From the beginning, our message has been very simple. We will not be extorted on this crazy plot of theirs. They've never done this before. Nobody has. You always vote for an extension. Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats need to vote for the clean, bipartisan CR and reopen our government. It's got to be reopened right now. We're not doing that. They are the obstructionists. And the reason they're doing it is because we're doing so well. We're doing well all over the world. We're doing well with the close to $20 trillion that I just told you about. It will be that number, but even if you take it down to over 17, that's a guarantee. We're doing well with everything.
He's right. And by the way, I sent a note off to a political appointee this morning before I'd seen that tape and told him I didn't think the government was going to reopen because Democrats realized the people that President Trump brought with him for term 2 are a whole lot more focused and dedicated and about the process of reforming the federal government from top to bottom. It's going to go deep. It's going to be quite the cutting of red tape when they get back to work, so they may be held out. Like losing weight, we're going to lose regulations. One of our great sponsors, My PhD Weight Loss, 864-644-1900. That's
864-644-1900.
Do you think you lost more weight than the bureaucracy is going to lose red tape when they reconvene government, Generalissimo?
Certainly not as fast. I'm thinking it's going to get cut a lot faster than the good old-fashioned methodical way.
Well, I want people to realize My PhD Weight Loss works.
It does.
Would you testify to that?
Absolutely.
Well, you go ahead and testify. You're like you're the worst witness I've ever had.
Why? I never know how much time you're going to give me. No, I lost 50
and that's it. All we've got for Dwayne. No, you lost
50 pounds in 12 weeks.
How many pounds?
50 pounds in 12 weeks. And if you translate that to red tape, I think I'm hopeful that the government's going to lose a lot more than that.
Yeah. MyPhDWeightLoss.com,
864-644-1900.
Do not pay for the fat shot. You don't need to. You can do My PhD Weight Loss. Now I have to tell people that our friend Rhett Rasmussen from BestHotGrill.com sent me a note last night. No, unfortunately, he is your friend.
Yes.
He said Dwayne is absolutely right. They're fireballs, and that trademark, and they're the only people that make fireballs.
Yes.
And you remembered it, and I didn't, so
yes.
I got shade from Rhett because of you.
Well, justifiably so.
No, you could have pretended not to remember fireballs.
No, I jumped in and trolled on top of it because that's what we do.
But I don't have fireballs in my house. I do have the Best Hot Patio Grill. Do you have that?
I do have the grill. I do not have a fireball. I need to actually finish measuring the box in my living room, the firebox, so he knows what exactly to put in. But I'm going to get a fireball.
Do you have the patio heater?
I do not have a patio heater. In California, you don't.
Heater.
Not in California, you don't.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh, give a look. Give a try. I'm not sure that's one of those that you can try before you buy, but it works so wonderfully well for the chilly nights in California and certainly in the South and even in the North when people want to be outside. The Best Hot Patio Grill is the way to go. BestHotGrill.com, BestHotGrill.com. And please, Rhett, don't send me any more emails saying that Dwayne was absolutely right.
Anytime you want, right?
No, that's the last thing I need is to be told that our friend Dwayne was absolutely right because it just drives me crazy. Let me conclude this segment by talking about the American Exploration and Production Council. They are, look, I love all my sponsors like BestHotGrill.com, but I was a permitting lawyer for 30 years, 27 to be exact. I would get a call from a landowner or an oil company or a natural gas company or a pipeline company. Someone wanted to build something. They wanted to get something done. They needed permits from the federal, state, and local government, and I was on the job. And it was lucrative because they're not easy to obtain. They're ridiculous, especially in California and the West. But the federal regime is pretty ridiculous as well. If I started telling you about the National Environmental Policy Act, the Clean Water Act, the Air Quality Act in California, the Endangered Species Act, they're all on top. They're stacked. Permits are stacked. And that's not even when you're down to the permit desk at the local agency. We need permit reform in the United States, especially for our energy. If we want to be oil independent, if we want to have a natural gas surplus, if we want the power to stay ahead in the race for AI and supercomputing and the race with China, they are building a new coal-fired plant a month over in China. We're not doing that. We need to do a lot more. In the American Exploration and Production Council, AXPC.org, AXPC.org, they have prioritized permit reform. Get on board at AXPC.org. Welcome back, America. That music means Lilacs is in the house, as in jameslilacs.substack.com. All things Lilacs at lilacs.com. James, welcome back. I got a lot to ask you about. I want to start with, were you back in the country for the No Kings rally?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was. I had a relative who went to that. And I walked past my wife having a conversation with said relative, and then she said, were there people in inflatable costumes there? And that's all I had to know, that this person had been to No Kings. Because you can't have a proper anti-fascist demonstration that shows the seriousness of your effort without somebody in an inflatable costume dressed up like a platypus or such. What I love is that when these things have gotten out of hand and the police need to, shall we say, chemically pacify people on the street, what they will do is not spray the bear spray or the mace or the pepper spray into the face of the inflatable mascot. They will find the ventilation point in the back and hose them right there, so it suffuses the suit and does a good job of incapacitating them. So yeah, we had them, bunch of old people, nothing changed.
Well, do you think they make a difference at all? I'm trying very hard to be respectful because I know a few people who went for them, but I thought it was inanity at an exponential rate beyond anything we've seen before.
I think the seriousness of the whole effort can be summed up in something that Democrats Abroad, I believe that's the name of the organization, a little missive that they sent out to people who were planning to participate in No Kings rallies in other countries. They said that we would like to actually change the name to No Autocrats because some of these countries actually have kings and they rather like them. So to be culturally sensitive, we're not going to call it No Kings so we don't insult actual kings. Ha! That says it all to me.
I want to switch from No Kings over to the fact that today a United States Marshal was shot at an ICE facility. The details are still coming in. Do the relative harmlessness of the No Kings seniors water aerobics class mask a darker, more violent, much smaller sliver of America that sort of reminds us of when you and I were in grade school and high school, the SDS?
Mask, or just sort of conveniently put off to the side as being irrelevant and not helpful and not indicative, reflective of the cause? I don't know. I saw somebody on one of these No Kings things who was making a speech about the need to shoot ICE agents. Was he indicative of the nice people who went there earnestly to protest authoritarianism? No, I don't think he was indicative. But if your movement includes those people who do stand up and they aren't roundly ejected like a watermelon seed spit at Mach 3, then yeah, you can say that their movement includes this. I mean, the guy standing there saying the need to bear arms and to shoot ICE agents, and then it happens. Stochastic terrorism,
people,
you might say.
People making gestures about Charlie Kirk, the finger pistol to the neck thing. I've seen that video clip a few different places. There are clearly a lot of disturbed people in the United States, James Lilacs. A lot. Much more than I suspected.
Yes, we saw that after Kirk. And what was unusual to us, we're not surprised that there are crazy, cranky people out there saying odd things in their basement or while sitting in their car ranting and spittle flecking away. It's the fact that so many of them were teachers and nurses and belonged to what we regarded to be the professions that are the glue that hold the society together, not the ones that cackle when it starts to come apart. That's the part that disturbs me.
All right, I want to close by talking about Comrade Mamdani in New York. I wrote a column for Fox News today urging Republicans, please don't vote for Curtis. I know he's a wonderful guy and he loves New York, but every vote for Curtis is a vote for Mamdani. And I can't imagine a guy who's run at most a staff of a dozen people for 6 years, running a city with 300,000 employees. Did you have any idea, James? 300,000 employees work for New York?
I know, and at least 15,000 of them show up every day. I am not surprised that he's just, it's stunning that he's doing as well as he is. But But nothing is indicative of the drift of the culture like this. 24, 25 years after 9/11, you have poised to win the mayoralty of New York City, a guy who was shown there doing a grip and grin with an unindicted co-conspirator of, I believe, the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. It's not a question of how soon we forget. It's how quickly we are eager to forget because something is cool and has a shiny vibe and, ooh, we're going to get new things. I find the campaign and all of the statements that he makes about charter schools and the rich and the rent control and the rest of it are disqualifying on their face. But hey, big smile, like I said, great vibe, and New York, good luck. In Florida, be prepared for a lot of U-Hauls coming down your way.
You know, I was at a college on Friday. I was off. Kurt Schlichter sat in for me. And I asked one of the students, they were wearing a Mamdani T-shirt, why? And he said, free buses. I want free buses. Isn't it amazing that people think anything is for free? Like the drivers are going to drive for free?
Well, they've said that there have been fewer incidences of violence against drivers since they made buses free in some other cities, which is a neat way of blackmail, because it says now the people who would beat up the bus driver, they're inside the bus with you. Good luck. So yes, free buses, but they break down an awful lot more. They don't come around as often. The seats are ripped. There's hypodermic needles rattling around the bottom, and they've canceled half the lines because they can't afford it. And by the way, the pensions are going to cripple the city. But otherwise, hey, I don't have to swipe my card and spend $1 to go 15 blocks. Good luck.
You've had a very progressive mayor in Minneapolis for a long time. Can it get worse? Can Mamdani be worse than him?
Absolutely so. As a matter of fact, I'm going over to a neighbor's house to actually meet the mayor in a couple of days or so and tell him a few things. But I mean, he's the rational choice in this upcoming election because the alternatives are so absolutely bat bleep crazy. So he might win because of that, because Minneapolitans may still, in their heart of hearts, look at the other guy and say, we're not going down the Mandami route in our fair city of lakes. But we'll see.
Do you think there is that chance, just even that sliver of a chance, that New York will wake up between now and November 4 and vote for Mamdani? I mean, vote for Cuomo.
Well, there's the great thing that you always have the youth vote, which is energized and enthusiastic, and they get out there and they have the signs and they have the T-shirts, and they're really, really excited about the possibility of change and participating in the democratic process. And when it comes to the day to vote, they don't, because they had something else to do, and actually they just felt like they voted by waving a sign around or holding or wearing a T-shirt. We'll see if that vote doesn't materialize and Cuomo gets in. But there again, there we are. Boy, I hope Cuomo gets in to save New York.
Yeah. Well, at least he's run. The state of New York has 186,000 employees. I keep going back to this, the basic math thing. If you've run 10 people, that's okay. You can run 20 or 100. But if you've run 10 people, you cannot run 300,000. You can't even staff 300,000. Lilacs, always a pleasure. Follow them at lilacs.com, jameslilacs.substack.com for your humor jolt of the day. Always love talking to Lilacs. Want to remind you, over at the top of HughHewitt.com is the banner for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And I want to employ you to remember the Vice President's there. Special Envoy Witkoff is there. Jared Kushner is there. All of the President mentioned today how the Arab allies in the region want this to work. Even if it does work, Israel's got a long road back to pre-10-7 days. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews doing everything they can to help. Your contributions are tax deductible, large or small. The donation bar at HughHewitt.com is very secure, gets aid immediately to Israel. The fellowship has been working there for decades. You can trust your dollars to them. Also, I want to remind you of ReliefFactor.com. Took it in hour number 1. Always remind people, take it again and again and again and again, because every single day keeps the minor aches and pains away. It's not going to heal a broken arm, not going to repair a torn rotator cuff or anything that requires surgery. It certainly is not going to put a new artificial knee in, but it's going to help you during the physical therapy. I had a dental assistant today who was up on her leg, her brand new knee, and it was bothering a little bit. And I told Relief Factor, give it a shot. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF is the starter pack, $19.95. $19.95 for a 3-week starter pack. You take 3 packets a day for first week every day, 2 packets a day for the second week, and then you're on the 1 packet a day like I am, like I took in the first hour. Relief Factor really does work. And for less than $1 a day for 3 weeks, you ought to give it a try. If right now you're in your car and anything is bothering you, anything at all, relieffactor.com. And I want to close today by talking about WebRoot because of what happened yesterday. If you had anything like the nightmare we had yesterday with our internets and the inner tubes, I don't know what they did to Amazon. I don't know what they blew up. But until late in the night, it was a mess. And I heard the guys at the commentary pod talking about how difficult it was to get their podcast up. We limped through yesterday. We have enough redundancy. We were able to do it. But I thought about the fact that we are all connected to the web in a remarkable number of ways. And that's great. It also means bad guys can come and find you. And they can come in through your portal. They can come in through your back door, through phishing. They can scam you directly. They can steal your identity by just the inputs if they've got malware on your computer. You really need webroot.com, the total protection plan. Webroot.com/Hewitt. Right now, Webroot Total Protection, and you can cover one identity and up to 5 devices or up to 5 members of the family and 10 devices. Webroot.com/essentials. Go and check out. You'll get a vast suite of protected devices, unique VPN, unlimited cloud backup, malware defenses, deep web monitoring to find out if indeed your identity theft has already been possessed by someone you had no idea what happened to you at a public wireless. Don't go out onto the internet naked. Get webroot.com/Hewitt. 60% off right now for WebRoot Total Protection at webroot.com/Hewitt.